don't know what shoes to wear.
Hello, hello. Huh?
I don't know what shoes to wear though.
What? What shoes to wear? Not sure, mommy. One sec. Yo, yo. Hello. Sorry, Petito.
Like Trump actually had like no connection to them, fuck yeah.
Petito.
And if Trump wins election and pardons himself, that's legal too. He can pardon himself.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he's fucking
I think
innocent.
that's a gray area, but
Presidents
He can
once out of
well,
office cannot
certainly.
pardon themselves.
Yeah,
I-
whether or not
yeah.
you believe he can or cannot.
I don't think
pardon
it's been
himself,
tested
it
yet.
Petito.
remains the case that like okay, if it is the case, because
It's
there is a
it's one
legitimate
straight.
concern right now. Like the current legal case against Trump is the
Hmm.
hush money case, which is like the least impactful. People don't fucking care about it. It's still fucking 31 felony counts. Regardless, at the end of this case, yeah. So like right now they're doing the
31?
jury.
Hello.
Yeah,
Petito.
31 felony counts.
Hello.
They
Just
have
for the
highly-
Stormy Daniels one? Are you fucking serious?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it was 31
Wow.
instances.
Okay, there we go.
Yo, what's up, Shiny Bear?
What's up, man? How's your day so far?
Oh, pretty good. Not as productive as it probably should have been, but I went to the gym, so there's that.
Nice. That's always a win.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. By the way, you mind if I stream?
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead. Oh, I don't know. Wait, I don't know what the server rules are about streaming.
I can truncate the usernames. I could like leave it anonymous.
No, like I'm fine with like being on stream. I just don't know if the server rules for Blue Politics let you stream. Because people can come in and out, and like they won't know if they're on stream.
Gotcha.
Like if you got your own Discord, I'm willing to like go to it if you want to go there.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I don't want to get banned from here. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, we'll just do a private call. That's fine.
Yeah, that works.
Actually, hold on. 'Cause I don't know if I can't. Let me try, cause I'm new to OBS. I don't know if Let me try. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, one sec. Let me talk real quick.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, it's definitely detecting the Discord. There. Switch. Go back here. Tito. Here we go. Here. Say 1, 2, 3 testing.
1, 2, 3 testing.
One sec. Let me see if I hear your voice.
Yeah. Can you? Oh yeah, you gotta check it separately. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I heard it. All right, babe. Alrighty. So I mean, we'll present today. I don't have much time, but we'll present today, and then we could pick up wherever we leave off. And another day that we can coordinate. So I'm guessing you're arguing for, correct?
Yeah, I'm pro-choice.
Okay, you wanna pretty much give me like you want me to start? You wanna start? Like, give me your opening.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm pro-choice because I think that there are things that we're weighing between like life and autonomy and like well-being, and what really it comes down to is personhood. I think the construct of what a person is something that we have created, have invented to like be helpful to humanity, which is I think a valuable concept. And I think deciding where personhood begins is like it's a decision that we have to make. And I think that the most reasonable place to put it that seems to have the best outcomes is somewhere around where consciousness can develop, since we're all like conscious beings, and like that is the most important thing that we care about. Because if you're unconscious, or if like you've never been conscious and you never will be conscious, then there's nothing really to value there because it doesn't exist. And I think that's a more It's just it has better outcomes than putting it at like the beginning of life, say like conception.
It has better outcomes, you said.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Does that wrap it up?
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Alrighty. I mean, pretty concise. It sounds like you've definitely like tossed it around a bit, since most people don't arrive at that conclusion immediately. That's kind of like the last step that you take if you're gonna remain on that side. So as far as like abortion goes, I would be against it in pretty much all scenarios, and the only one that I would be against, that I would be willing to consider a for position, would be in the case of grape. So the reason why, obviously, being granted, I'm sure you agree that, you know, life begins at conception. There's no disagreement on that. It's just that you're valuing the consciousness and not just the life, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so then we can get into the nitty gritty. Fair enough. Alrighty, so you say that you would start to put the value of personhood at the emergence of consciousness. I'm gonna assume that you mean brain activity, essentially.
Well, not like not necessarily all brain activity.
How would you classify consciousness then in the fetus?
Yeah. I mean, at some point of like neurological development, like I would. Deal
Well,
with
neurological
that.
development starts very early, like almost like a week, 2 weeks in. So, you know, you wouldn't be able to classify that as I wouldn't classify that as consciousness in good faith. I would have to, like, the best argument that I would hear, that I have heard for the consciousness argument, would be the brain activity. You know, like seeing actual, you know, as how we classify somebody being brain dead versus being alive, right? So if somebody's brain dead, there's no brain activity.
Yeah. Once you can measure a certain amount of like, you know, electrical signals coming from the brain, however it works.
Yeah, so like you're still gonna get so if a person falls into a coma and they're in a vegetative state and they're legally declared to be brain dead, you know, they're still getting blood flow to the brain, so it's not, you know, rotting away or anything. They're obviously going to be ventilated and all these other machines to help them maintain you know, vitality, but the brain itself is not putting out any signals, and no signals at all. So that's the legal definition of brain dead. Now, as far as can you come back from brain dead, it's not 100% impossible. It's 99.99% unlikely, because that's by definition it's supposed to be dead, right? So, you know, there's not supposed to be a case where you come back from, because by definition you're supposed to be dead. So if we were going to go with that definition, then I don't know how, like I mean, I'm in medicine, I'm a nurse, so I'm pretty like aware of like the stages of the week. So if you want, I could help you out on where it is that you you know, you would put that consciousness value at. So typically the consciousness, the brain activity, quote unquote, would be seen somewhere around the 18-week mark. So I would assume that's where you would typically place the limit of abortion, correct?
Yeah, or at least that's where I would like start to limit it to a degree. Like before that, like if we go, you know, if we then give that like a little bit more space, say 16 weeks, anything before that would be
For
just
safety reasons, just to, you know, like catch any strays sort of scenario.
Yeah, exactly. And
Okay,
so then
even more
before-
respectable. Okay.
Yeah. So before that, it would just be completely unlimited, right? Like you can just get any time.
Pill,
you can-
yeah, anything, whatever,
yeah,
all
get an
fine.
abortion, whatever
Mhm.
way, whatever. And then after that, we have to start taking that consciousness into consideration of some sort. So like, then you've got, you know, things like once it's like really viable, then the option is of like actual just like you know, induced birth rather than abortion becomes viable. Like that would be the choice. But
Wait, so
still,
you
like-
would allow it as long you would allow it afterwards, after the period, let's say we have like we actually detect consciousness, so you know, quote unquote, the brain activity that we were talking about, you would still allow some cases of abortion afterwards?
Yeah. Say like life of the mother is at significant risk, or there's probably some other example. Like if the
Well, if the life of the mother is at risk, it would no longer be classified as an abortion. I mean, medically, yes, but colloquially, no. So what you call an abortion would be, by definition, by the CDC, would be the intentional murder of the fetus, right? It's not saving nothing to do with the woman. You're just eliminating the fetus. So by definition, the woman's life being in danger would never justify an abortion. For example, let's say you have a molar pregnancy or you have an ectopic pregnancy, anything along the lines of that, where the fetus is not viable where it's implanted, or it's just not a viable fetus at all, like in the molar pregnancy scenario. So you don't actually go in and go with the intent or with the purpose of murdering that baby. So you're just going in to remove it from where it's at, because if you allow it to continue to grow, the mother will die. Therefore, it is not an abortion. It's just we don't have the capabilities of keeping that fetus alive. Therefore, it will die. It's a tragedy, but it's not an abortion.
Well, I mean, it's still like it's still the same.
It's
I would
not,
say that
because that's how you would
yeah.
make the distinction in the case, for example, if I were to have my say in a fascist ruling and say no abortion, that would be where that, right? Because that, like you've heard, I'm sure you've heard the argument on the liberal side of things where it says, like they're not even allowing it, even if it's at risk to the mother's health. Well, that's the point. That's why I want to clarify that, because that's no longer considered an abortion. That would still be allowed under my purview.
Okay, so that's yeah. Well, I would just under my framework, anything where you're going in and you're like at that point you are like once you're considering the personhood, once they're conscious, if you're doing something that like by its nature,
Mhm.
like that consciousness will die, like that consciousness will I would say that is equivalent. I would say whether or not you just remove it and there's and
Well, I
there's
mean,
nothing to do to save it, or whether you actually kill it, which could possibly be a more humane option.
well, the issue is that well, I mean, I want to move back to a point that you made earlier, but I just want to clarify on this, that the issue is it's a deontological issue, because when you're going in to remove that ectopic pregnancy, let's say, you're not going in to kill the baby, right? You remove it from where it's implanted and you try to re-implant it in the womb. It doesn't take, the baby passes. It happens all the time. Anything medically classified as an abortion would be natural passing under, I believe, 18 or 20 weeks of pregnancy. So you going in there.
So under your rule, if there's an ectopic pregnancy, you would have to try and put it back in the womb.
You have to, as a doctor, what you would have to, like, what falls on you as your duty would be to try your best to save both lives. But if the fetus does not implant in the womb, what are you gonna do? It's a tragedy. It passes. You have a medical abortion where you naturally pass it.
But I mean, you could always try harder, right?
Well, if we had the technology, yeah, that would be required under my purview. Yeah.
Okay.
So if we had like an artificial womb that we could implant them, I would require that. It would no longer be like take it out, it would be take it out, put it in the artificial womb, try to save both lives.
I guess that's what you have to do when you have like a deontological framework like that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's why I just wanted to clarify. But I wanted to move backwards, because it sounds like you didn't have a full commitment to the consciousness issue, because you mentioned at the beginning that consciousness is your limiting factor, but then you said that you would still allow it afterwards, and then you mentioned viability. So are you trying to make the case for viability, or are you trying to make the case for consciousness, or is it in both case scenario, or either or scenario?
Yeah, I think viability also comes into play. So I think consciousness is the first thing, but just because we're establishing personhood and
well, it doesn't really matter, right? Like if viability, if you're gonna extend it all the way to viability, consciousness never really like took effect, because if the baby is conscious, let's say at 19, right, but viable at 17, now would you limit at 17?
Oh no. So consciousness is the first priority, and then viability is like a secondary like consideration.
Well, but you would still allow it past consciousness as long as the baby is not viable. And now if it's viable, you would no longer allow it. And by viable, you would
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that like
No.
once if it's not viable, then it's perfectly okay the same way like if it wasn't conscious. I'm saying if it's not viable yet, that means like abortion like for some like specific cases is still on the table, whereas if it is viable, as in you can like possibly like just induce birth, like then abortion's just no longer on the table, because like if you can just induce birth and there's no reason to like.
Oh, okay. So it is consciousness. You would not allow abortion past consciousness. It would still be okay. So you're okay. So then it is consistent. Like if you're
I wouldn't allow unlimited abortion past consciousness.
no, not even some abortions, because if the issue if if they're granted, because you know, at the end of the day, I agree with you. It would be where you grant personhood. The only reason that I'm granting it at conception is because there is no way to verifiably say at which point consciousness develops without having that doubt. There's no way to prove that, because obviously it's a highly debated issue what consciousness even is. So like, if you want to, but I do agree that if you were to grant personhood, it would be consciousness for the same scenario that we just talked about with the case of the brain dead. And I'll poke the hole in the consciousness argument now. I just wanted to clarify the portion of, so if let's say definitively we know that it happens at 18 weeks, you know, consciousness 100%, 18 weeks to the day, to the letter, to the T, to the second, right? So you develop consciousness at that point. So that much is clear. We know that much. So you would allow abortion up to that second, but afterwards you would have to limit everything. You wouldn't be able to have any abortions. You would have to just induce birth at worst, right? Like on the best case, on the worst case scenario, I guess on my, like, not worst or best, because it's that's, you know, I'm granting it whatever, you know what I'm trying to say. In any case, like, you past consciousness, if you are allowing abortions, then the consciousness issue doesn't hold. You have to limit it there. Like, if you're reasoning for granting personhood, and by granting personhood, I assume that you mean granting all the rights that we all have, correct? You're affording that baby all the rights that we have, the right to life, the right to, no,
Not the right to drive.
well, obviously, like the rights that you would afford a born baby at 9 months old, same rights.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so then that means that, you know, like, once you develop consciousness, that's it. No more abortion is allowed.
Not necessarily.
Well, in what case would you allow abortion?
Yeah, yeah. Like, so say they're in the same area where it's like ethical to choose between like two lives or a life and like some other thing, then like that would, like, if there's a significant risk to the life of the mother that comes up later and it's not viable, right? Like, so it's conscious but not viable, and then we find out there's a significant risk to the life of the mother if we proceed through the pregnancy from that point, then I would say their abortion is ethical, and it is.
But why would it?
Of
But
person.
why would you do abortion versus induce the birth?
Well,
Because I would agree on that case.
Yeah, but I would say that those, for me, those are the same thing.
Oh, they're not. They're not. No, because we have to go by definition. So CDC, the abortion would be the intentional purpose of killing that baby. That is strictly what abortion would be classified for the CDC. So if you go in and induce a birth, that's not an abortion. It has to be you go in and you murder the baby. The intentional killing of the baby. That's abortion.
Yeah.
It's just not classified under the law as murder, but it is the intentional killing of the baby. That's what abortion would be. So with those definitions, you would not grant any cases. I mean, obviously there's you know, like very specific scenarios where it could be allowed, but
like I would think at that point it'd be more ethical to actually kill the baby than it would be to induce a birth and
Why?
let it die of natural causes.
Well, why? Because that
natural causes is probably less pleasant, is more unpleasant than being killed directly.
yeah, but that's absent medical assistance, and that's kind of the whole point of viability. So if you're viable, it doesn't mean that you just come out and you're good to go, right? Like, you're still gonna need the help of the medical professionals.
Yeah, and if it's
So inducing birth doesn't mean like induce it and see what happens. It means induce it and then save the baby's life. If it's viable, it'll live. If it's not, it won't. That's kind of what the viability thing is.
Yeah, that kind of has like the kind of like, there's this idea in there that like, even if it's like unviable, that's like in quotation marks, and it might still live somehow. But if it's like possible that like
no, if it's not viable, by definition, it wouldn't live regardless of what you do.
Yeah, exactly. And at that point, if something is going to die regardless of what you do, I think letting it die in the most comfortable way versus killing it in the most comfortable way, those are just functionally equivalent.
Well, at that point, you're trying to make a case for euthanasia, which I'm willing to hear you out. But like, you would grant that you would induce the birth, you would try your best, and then if you know, we have a definitive answer of, hey, he's not gonna make it, you know, sorry. Now you have the option of euthanasia on the table. That I'm willing to hear out. But you have to agree that after consciousness is developed, you would have to no longer allow abortions, and in the case that it has to, you know, the baby has to come out, it would have to be an induced birth.
Well, unless that wouldn't be the case if there's a period of time after consciousness where we have like certain or like close to certain inviability. Like if it's non-viable, if it's like non-viable at that point.
Well, that's just the thing. It just so happens that after 20 weeks is when it's viable. That's why under 20 weeks is considered a natural abortion versus after 20 weeks not being an abortion and being a miscarriage.
Okay, well then then at that point I guess there would be abortion, but you know my mind could be changed on that if they're like
Gotcha.
significant, like because it is within my ethical framework.
No, there's definitely a lot more to expand on this, but I definitely don't have the time for that today. So I just wanted to poke holes before I have to go in the other section, which is the consciousness argument. So the issue with the consciousness argument to allow it beforehand is the issue of potentiality, right? So I don't know if you've heard that before. So for the case, okay, so then how do you counter the fact that if I were to tell you with 100% certainty at 18 weeks, like we said in the hypothetical earlier, to the second, at 18 weeks, that baby will develop consciousness. If you're allowing abortion before then, you are killing something that you know will regain life. So if I presented you the scenario, let's say you're...
Wait, sorry, not regain life, gain life.
Sorry, yes, you're right. Yeah, sorry, misspoke. So gain life. So if it already has life, like a consciousness, gain consciousness. It will a personhood. It will gain our definition of personhood is what it will gain, right? So if I told you, if you have a loved one that falls into a coma, and then that person is not in a vegetative state, but brain activity is still there, right? Actually, you know what? It would be more apt to say no brain activity. But what if in this hypothetical, a doctor came up to you and told you with 100% certainty again, in 18 weeks to the second, that loved one will regain consciousness. And then they ask you, do you wish to disconnect them now or no? Would you disconnect that loved one?
No.
Well, that's kind of the same scenario with the baby.
Well, I would disagree because I would say that loved one is already a person. Like they already fall under the social contract.
Yeah, but they lost the consciousness. Therefore, they lost personhood.
No, I would say
Yeah, no brain activity. No brain activity at all. Classified, they're dead.
Yeah, but if it's suspended, if they're going to come back, right? Like you said, that means that personhood, like that continuity, is still that. Like you're in a contract. Like actually, you know, I'll tell you, you're right in a way, in that like that unconscious person, like that exists now. I don't care about them, right? Like they don't actually have rights or personhood or whatever. The person who has rights is the one who existed before, like the previous person who was in that body.
Yeah.
They're the ones with the rights and stuff that we respect, even post like mortem to an extent. And like,
why would it be post mortem? Like if they lost the consciousness legally, they lost their right to personhood, so to speak.
No, but we still have we still have some rights post mortem. Like if I die and I have a will, right? Like people have.
Yeah, but that's modeling the argument. That doesn't have to do with what pertains to will somebody else have the power to say whether you live or die? That's the argument that's at base right now. So if that person, that loved one beforehand was a person because they had consciousness, now they have no consciousness by the same definitions that we've been using. So no brain activity, confirmed. 100% magical world. It's a hypothetical. And then in 18 weeks, they will regain that consciousness. That's why it equates to the abortion issue. So if we have no brain activity until that 18-week mark, we know for sure at 100% case scenario, at that 18-week mark, they will regain consciousness. So I don't see how you could like make the case that you wouldn't disconnect your loved one when they're in that when they're dead, quote unquote, but you would disconnect the baby when they're dead, quote unquote.
Because we know they're going to come back, that like changes the parameters of the social
Well,
contract, right?
But
Like,
that's the
we're
point.
aware
The
of
baby
it,
will
we're
come
aware-
back. Well, come
Well,
in.
yeah, but there's nobody there to like hurt at that moment. Right?
So
Like,
there isn't in the case of their father, of the not the father, the loved one either. They're done. They're dead.
No, but there was in the past. Like that's.
Well, yeah, but they're dead.
protecting.
They're dead now.
Protecting yeah, but they still have like again, they're still part of the social contract. Even if you die, you still maintain a degree of personhood. Like even like though you can't, you lose some rights, right? But if there are other things that you maintain, and one of those things.
Well, you lose the basic one, which is the right to life. You lose the right to say I want to remain alive. So somebody else can come in and say I would disconnect them, because that's how it currently stands. When you're legally declared dead, somebody has the right to unplug you.
There are two there are two types of right to life. I think we're getting mixed up here.
Mm.
There's the right to biological life, and then there's the right to conscious life. And I would say we always have the right to conscious life as long as like we are conscious, and then as long as that's a thing that can possibly be maintained in the future. But we don't have that same right to like biological life. That's why when you lose your conscious life, like somebody can pull the plug on your biological life because like the one takes precedent. But if you can get that conscious life back, then that conscious life like has the right to continue itself.
You don't see how you don't see, but like your only distinction there is that it was there before, it's no longer here, so therefore it has the right to remain. But how is that they're no longer here? That's a highlight. That is the highlight right there. They're no longer here. That is the same state as the fetus.
Well, except that's again. I think
They just missed the like the personhood prior to that, but that doesn't matter anymore because they're gone now.
Well, I mean, I think it does matter because we have contracts with persons in the present and the past, but not in the future, right? Like we can't have contracts with hypothetical people in the future, right? Like there's going to be a president, right? Probably in 100 years, and they're probably not born yet, right? But we can't like enter into a contract. We can enter into a contract with the office of the presidency that comes into effect 100 years ago, but we can't, enter into a contract with that specific person, right? Like that specific human being because they're like a future hypothetical person. And I would say the same thing is true of an embryo, right? Like that's a future person. In that case, we like actually know some stuff about that, like that person, like who their parents are going to be, and like perhaps like some of what their genetics are. But we can't enter into an actual contract with that person because that person doesn't exist, right? And has not existed. But we can enter into a contract with a person who's alive now that continues after they have died, right?
I don't see how that maps over.
Like, I mean, okay, so this is all under like
Mm.
consequentialist utilitarian framework, right? We're building frameworks so that they can be useful to us in the real world. And I would say that like personhood is a useful construct, and it makes sense that it continues to operate after somebody has died. And in the scenario where somebody can come back from the dead, basically, which is like what we've laid out,
Essentially.
then it makes sense to treat them as a continuous person, even if they're not actually like continuous in time, right? Like if they die for a bit and then come back, it makes sense to treat that as one whole person because that's how people would want to be treated, right? Like that's how that would create a more effective society. But that same thing doesn't apply to people before they're born or before they develop consciousness.
I really don't see how, because at the end of the day, if you're dealing with a consequentialist argument, it's all the same. At the end of at the 18-week mark, you're gonna have a life, a consciousness life, a person. And I don't see how it matters what came before. If at the 18-week mark you will have a person. Now the difference here with in real life would be on an actual deathbed you're gone. So that's why you're allowed to pull the plug, because they're actually gone. There's no coming back, no guarantee, but there's almost a guarantee they will not come back. Not entirely, but almost. And in the case of the baby, there's almost a guarantee they will come to life. It's the opposite end. But let's stick to the scenario that we have now. How does it matter what comes before if the consequence of waiting the 18-week is that you have a person? How is it fair to remove that person's right to like exist? Because at the 18-week mark, they'll be there. They'll be there.
Yeah, well, again, because you're talking about that person, and I'm saying but I would say that you're not referring to that person, right? Like somebody doesn't have a right to exist before they're born, right? Like I couldn't like sue my parents.
What do you mean by that?
Like deciding not to like have sex and eventually.
What do you mean somebody doesn't have the right to exist before they're born?
Sorry, not before they're born, but before they're conscious, before they're a person. Like somebody doesn't have a right to exist before they exist. And
somebody doesn't have the right to exist before they exist.
Yes. Right. That seems.
But by definition, well, I mean, I get what you're saying. It's not really tautological because it's just a play on words. Like it's just how we're phrasing this. This is why it's very messy. Fuck, I have 3 minutes. Fuck, god damn it. All right. Well, yeah, look, I don't want to like develop this further because it's just gonna lead and then like. it's okay. So let's pin it. When do you want to continue this?
I could on Monday.
Monday? Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, cause I'm in Florida. I'm going down to the Keys on tomorrow. Coming back like Sunday afternoon, but I gotta go get a rabies shot on Sunday. So
Sounds good.
yeah. Tell me
That's
about
how they get the microchip in you.
it. All right, sounds good, man. Nice talking to you again. We'll coordinate for Monday, okay? Nighttime, I'm guessing, as usual.
Yeah, sure.
All right, bro.